Blood is an interesting part of your body. Blood is like any other body tissue, except that it's a liquid. Your body tissues consist of cells which are held together with fibers and various other connective substances which hold the cells together. But blood consists of living cells which are floating around in a liquid. Let's just have a very brief look at what's in blood, and then we'll talk about how that's has been applied in the scriptures. So the life is in the blood. The term life blood actually does come from the Bible, even though it's a term that's just become part of our common parlance. And it goes back to Genesis 9, which is when God is giving Noah instructions about what life is going to be like after the flood. And God changed the instructions about diet. In the passage that we read from Genesis 1 at the beginning, human beings were instructed to eat plants and only plants. After the flood, the rules were changed, and Noah and his family, and therefore all the descendants of them, so that's everyone that's living on the earth now and has lived ever since, does have permission to eat meat. But there is one proviso, and this is set out in Genesis 9, but you shall not eat flesh with its life. Now that's interesting, the way that's put. Flesh with its life. And God then defines the life, that is, its blood. And for your lifeblood, so there is that word lifeblood rendered as an English word, but it's become part of our normal language. So life and blood go together, so much so that that's one word. And for your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning. And it then goes on to describe how God sets the rules about even if an animal kills a human being, that animal is accountable for that and will be punished. And human beings who kill other human beings will also be punished. Now, that's a whole other issue that we can come back to if you like. Let's just keep on having a look at blood. Now, later on, when God leads out his chosen people to go to the promised land, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who became the nation of Israel, and God gave them the rules for their life in the promised land. And they were told what they could and couldn't eat when they lived there, well, even before they got there. And this instruction that was given to Noah was reiterated in a lot more detail, and the reason was given here in Leviticus and later on in Deuteronomy. For the life of every creature is its blood is its life. So blood and life go together, and that is quite reasonable because you are dependent on having enough blood in your body and for your blood to be circulating, that is flowing around your body. So let's have a brief look at blood function. It does lots and lots of things, but the things that are essential for life is all of the cells in your body need oxygen. The oxygen is in the air, but somehow you've got to get the oxygen from the air to the body tissues. All right, we can breathe it into our lungs, but from then on, it is the blood that takes the oxygen to all the other body tissues. So to get from your lungs to your big toe or to your brain, you need blood. Using up the oxygen will produce carbon dioxide. That has to be removed, otherwise it will poison you. And the blood will take that away, take it back to the lungs where it can be disposed of back into the atmosphere. All of the things we eat go into our stomach and get absorbed by our digestive system, but then the nutrients and the metabolites, that's the chemicals that are made in the liver and various other structures associated with the digestive system, they then have to be distributed around to the body tissues. Blood does that. All of your cellular processes will produce waste products which have to be disposed of. The kidneys are the main way of getting rid of those waste products. Blood takes those waste products to the kidneys where they can be extracted out of the blood and then disposed of. Now, an interesting function of blood is to transport white blood cells. We've all heard of white blood cells. They are just being transported by the blood. They actually do their work out in the body tissues. We'll a little bit more detail of that, but basically, blood does keep you alive. So the term lifeblood is biologically correct as well as spiritually correct. So let's have a look at these components just briefly, quickly. Red blood cells are called erythrocytes, and they are what makes blood red. They literally are red. Leukocytes means white cells, and that is because if you look at them under a microscope, they just do look sort of pale and clear. Now, in order to see them properly, we apply stains to them, and they come out all sorts of interesting colors. But they are called white cells because they're not red like the other ones. There are also structures called platelets, which are actually parts of cells. They're made in the bone marrow from a cell which rejoices in the name of a megakaryocyte, but that is just a posh term for a great big cell. And then, of course, all of these things float round in the liquid part of blood, which is plasma, which is a very, very complex liquid. It is mostly water, of course, but it contains proteins and all sorts of dissolved substances, as well as the dissolved nutrients that you have absorbed from your gastrointestinal tract, the dissolved waste products. So a very, very complex substance, blood. Now let's have a brief look. Blood cells, right? Red cells are interesting in that they are round, but they have this sort of indented shape. White blood cells have a rather interesting frilly sort of shape. Cells in the body are not usually just smooth and round. They have all sorts of interesting shapes to interact with other cells, or in the case of white blood cells, that they are actually capable of their own independent movement. And then platelets, as I said, are actually parts of cells from a big cell that was made in the bone marrow. Now, the red cells and the white cells are also made in the bone marrow. If you look at some blood that has just been smeared onto a glass slide or onto a flat surface and you shine light through it, all of those things which look like flat discs with clear centers, those are the red blood cells. And the reason they look like they've got clear centers in this preparation is that the light has been shone from underneath. And if we just go back to the picture we had there before, you can see that the red cell is indented, so it's thinner in the middle. And the white blood cell has been deliberately stained this sort of purple color. And as you can see, there are an awful lot more red blood cells than there are white blood cells, because the red blood cells are carrying out their function within the blood. The white blood cells are just using the blood as a transport medium. So red blood cells have a shape that's called a biconcave disc. In other words, they are round and indented in the center, and that gives them a large surface area. And that helps them to function really well, because oxygen has to be able to pass through the cell membrane, the outer layer of the cell, into the hemoglobin in between. And they are flexible. They can squeeze through the tiniest microscopic capillaries that are in your lungs and in your body tissues. So they are sort of round and rubbery with this big surface area for very quick gas exchange. Lovely piece of design, the red blood cell. And they are red because they are filled with hemoglobin, which is what carries the oxygen and also some carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is transported in 3 different ways that we don't need to go into at the moment. But really useful stuff, hemoglobin. We are dependent on it for our life because it does carry oxygen. And the red blood cell is designed brilliantly for the oxygen to move in and out of the cell very, very quickly because it has this large surface area. Now, white blood cells are interesting in that they are transported by the blood, but they carry out their function in the body tissues. And they are important for repairing the body and for fighting infection. Now, we would need white blood cells even in the very good world that was described there in Genesis 1. Just like any piece of machinery, the body does run down just from being used. But if the repair processes can keep up with the breakdown processes, right, you won't die. You will stay the same. Unfortunately, we do die because our repair process eventually break down, and so our body can't keep up with it. But white blood cells move around in the blood to areas that do need repairing because they've been damaged, and they literally just push their way out of the blood capillaries. They are capable of independent movement, and they can sort of push their way out of the capillaries into the body tissues, and they fight infection. So if any microbes end up in the wrong place, now we have a lot of microbes that do live inside the body, and as long as they stay in their place, that's a good thing. And we all have to take care of our microbiome these days. And we're told to eat probiotics and various other things which maintain the microbiome. That's good as long as those microbes stay in the right place. If they get into the wrong place, white blood cells will come along and take care of them.